floods. During a river flood, runoff flows from basin to basin, swelling downstream rivers beyond their banks, and that can mean hundreds of miles of dangerously flooded roads. While a flash flood hits hard and fast, a river flood builds over periods of days or weeks and typically impacts a greater mass of land. And though a river flood may lack the abrupt drama of a flash flood, its impact can be just as damaging. When floodwaters invade a home, the results are usually devastating.
Dad, how did it get up here?
Like in 1993, when a river flood sweeps through the house of Stan Hurst, destroying everything inside. Now, Stan and his daughter Sheila must root through the aftermath and gather what little is left of their old life.
I'm going to high ground. I'm going to find a place in Missouri, on top of a hill. When the water comes the next time, I'm going to say, you people that didn't leave, I can't feel sorry for you. You had your warning.
I guess we had a little snow melt up in East Tennessee, so we had a little rise, slight rise in the rivers with that.
A little bit here and there.
Dave Reed is the hydrologist in charge of NOAA's Lower Mississippi River Forecast Center in Slidell, Louisiana, one of 13 river forecast centers throughout the U.S.
Not only do we have problems with spring floods, winter and spring floods from heavy rainfall, we also have to contend with heavy rainfall from tropical systems through the hurricane season.
During the flood or hurricane season, things can get pretty dangerous for river barge operators who use the river as their highway, transporting over 472 million tons of cargo annually, including gasoline and nearly half the grain exported from the United States. To protect both cargo and lives year-round, NOAA puts out a comprehensive daily river forecast, a forecast that monitors and interprets more than 80 data components affecting river conditions. To amass such a broad range of data, NOAA relies on partner organizations, including the U.S. Geological Survey, that measures river flow with its system of river gauges.
We would not be able to do near as good a job without the data and support that we receive from USGS.
And NOAA also receives vital data collected by more than 10,000 volunteers nationwide as part of NOAA's Cooperative Observer Program. These citizens record measurements of local snow and rainfall every day. Some use traditional rain gauges and phone in results, while others are being modernized with new digital rain gauges that send information more often and in near real time. As the data comes in, it is automatically processed by NOAA hydrologists. The effectiveness of today's river forecasts adds to the success of NOAA's Advanced Hydrologic Prediction Service.
I use the information all the time because I live on the bayou. I'm always concerned what the river's going to do after a heavy rain. And generally, it's good to follow these guys what they say because they're usually very accurate, and it helps us in our business.
We monitor the forecast by the National Weather Service pretty closely. We rely on that pretty heavily.
NOAA's forecast centers monitor river conditions around the clock, throughout our country, always ready to prepare us for the worst. Coming up, a powerful Pacific rainstorm pounds Northern California. Can the system of dams and reservoirs keep floodwaters at bay? Find out next. We all depend on nature to provide us with an abundant supply of fresh water, but receiving too much water can result in violent floods. And too little, devastating drought.
It's the worst I've ever seen. For this time of year, there's no grass, very little water.
That's why managing the nation's water supply is like walking a tightrope, and all of our lives hang in the balance.
Well, water management is basically two things. It's in one case, it's a matter of how do you manage water when you don't have enough of it, and then conversely, how do you manage water when you have too much of it?
A prime example of the challenge of water management is the state of California, the most populated state in the driest half of the country. Much of the state's precipitation occurs in northern and central California, where federal, state, and local agencies maintain a system of dams and reservoirs and regulate the amount of water released for irrigation, recreation, or drinking. Most of California's fresh water supply is collected during the winter and spring, when huge amounts of runoff from rain and snowmelt fill the reservoirs, sometimes too much. That's the case in December 1996 and early January 97, when a series of storms dumps a huge amount of rain around California's Central Valley.
Warm rain hit the Sierras, it just melted this snowpack just being like this.
Runoff quickly fills the enormous Folsom Reservoir beyond its capacity, and local water managers have a major crisis on their hands.
The water in the dam, behind the dam, has risen to the point now where it can begin to come over the top of the dam. It is a classic water management problem that they're facing out here right now, kind of like the bulge through the snake, if you will.
To avoid potentially catastrophic flooding that could occur, water managers decide to make controlled releases of water from the Folsom Dam. But so much water has to be released that rivers rise, levees break, and widespread flooding is unavoidable.
I'm afraid it is as bad as it sounds.
That's what they're looking for. 2 people standing in the water there.
The dangerously rising floodwaters strand Mike and Mary Ann Otterino atop their completely submerged car. All night long, the frightened couple cling to one another for dear life. 12 hours later, daybreak brings hope, and rescue helicopters finally spot them, still alive. Frozen and disoriented, they're hoisted to safety by a Coast Guard rescue team. As bad as the flood was, without the controlled releases of a good water management system, the devastation would have been far worse. Helping water managers are the forecasts provided by NOAA's National Weather Service.
Anytime a major flood event occurs, all of the water management agencies and National Weather Service river forecast centers work around the clock to fulfill our mission of protection of lives and property.
Gauging how much water to release during the flood season is the trickiest part of water management. Release too much, and there may not be enough stored up for times of drought.
Floods tend to affect people who live along rivers, and droughts affect everyone.
The lack of water in this reservoir can have some serious consequences in terms of fire suppression abilities, in terms of domestic drinking water, let alone irrigation water for farmers.
From 1987 to 1992, Southern California suffered a severe drought when winter precipitation was at a dangerous low.
It's April 30th, 1992, the Phillips Ranch snow course. And in this meadow here, we should have about 3 feet of snow. Today it's 0. There is no snow. Meadow's dry.
The lack of runoff kept reservoirs dangerously low, affecting everything from hydroelectric power to everyday water consumption. But thanks in great part to the evolving forecast capabilities of NOAA's National Weather Service, water managers in California and throughout the nation are better equipped to keep our water supply both plentiful and under control.
We work hand in hand, and everybody does their part. The Weather Service does the forecasting, we do the operating, and it's been a very effective partnership.
Coming up, a massive flash flood causes one of the worst natural disasters in U.S. history. Stay tuned. Throughout our history, water's fury has provided example after example of the vital need for NOAA's National Weather Service. And perhaps no community demonstrates the progress NOAA has made more than the flood-stricken city of Johnstown, Pennsylvania. Situated at the bottom of 650 miles of mountainous and rainy terrain, making it the draining point of massive amounts of water. One catastrophe that stands out even after a century is the flash flood that devastated Johnstown, Pennsylvania on May 31st, 1889.
Water had been rising behind the South Fork Dam all morning, and the dam was overtopped about noon. And about 10 minutes after 3, the South Fork Dam just pushed away this massive earthen structure. 20 million tons of water began an hour-long descent on Johnstown.
The wall of water rose to 40 feet high, barreled downhill at 40 miles an hour, and leveled everything in its path.
People had no idea what it was until it was actually on top of them. They thought it was the apocalypse, and it just annihilated the city.
More than 2,200 people died in that horrendous flash flood, making it the second deadliest natural disaster in U.S. history. Some bodies were even found as far away as Ohio,